You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Hi, I'm Mitch.
And I'm Davey.
And we are
the Bargain Bin Gamers.
Recording this for the first time.
Absolutely the first time. We did not just record for almost an hour with no audio streaming into the microphone not working. That's not what happened at all. This is all fresh and off the cuff.
Most certainly
I know,
is.
and that dry run was really boring. We barely said anything funny.
And nothing of value.
And nothing of value whatsoever. So this is your episode. Continue the introduction.
We are the YouTube show, podcast, and occasional Twitch stream where we play the gayest games.
Fuck, you still fucked it up.
I still fucked it up. So we put the gay in gaming is what the actual new one
Whilst
is.
also looking after your hip pocket.
Thank you, Davey.
Exactly. Did you know that we are part of a broader network of podcasts called the BQN?
I did. Can you tell our listeners and viewers how they could possibly be a part of such a thing?
They could, because we always love to give a shout out to our BQN podcast network patrons, especially to this show's associate producer,
Sam Johnson.
Sam Johnson. He puts the Johnson in Sam.
He puts the Sam in Johnson.
He's just bought a farm, by the way.
Oh my, that's hot. Farmer wants a wife? Or?
Yeah, well, maybe.
Hi, Sam.
You single?
And how could they possibly join this fabulous network? Tell the
look,
people.
you can help keep this and other BQN network podcasts coming to you every single week by signing up to be a patron over at patreon.com/BQN.
Mm-hmm.
For as little as $1 or $2 a month. You get early access to some of our shows,
Mm-hmm.
along with some other bonus content. And for as little as $5 a month, you get Patreon-only podcasts, unedited versions of our shows, and access to monthly Zooms and all kinds of other things. And the levels just keep going up, and it's just amazing. It's just
amazing.
It's
Might
just
even
amazing.
put the dry run that we just did up on
exactly.
Patreon just to giggle at.
Yeah, if you're a lip reader, you'll love it.
You will love it. Had some salient points.
Exactly.
So, Davey, what are we talking about today?
We have been hacking some ROMs. It's just as funny this time as it was at the time when I wasn't recording any audio.
It's worse.
It's worse. No, we have been exploring the world of ROM hacking.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for anyone who doesn't know, a lot of people like to experience games from older consoles through emulators, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have, genuine backups of their old cartridges in what's
Definitely
called a ROM file.
Yes.
However, what has become very, very popular in recent times is ROM hacking.
Correct. Hacking the ROM.
Hacking the ROM, which is essentially where you get into the game's code, I guess, so there's a technical explanation through the ROM and make changes to it.
Fiddle with it.
Yeah, so a lot of people get in and do all kinds of fiddling, as Mitch just exclaimed or proclaimed. And oh my God, this is so bad. People so people get in there. And so what I have seen is a lot of people getting in and enhancing older games.
Correct.
Allowing you to download HD texture packs, like our friend Jake from Melbourne Gamers has been doing with Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, who also told me that download is 32 gigabytes, which is more than like the 100 megs that the game originally shipped on in its cartridge. But Classic. However, you have got us onto a ROM hack which kind of demakes the graphics a little bit, but also makes a whole bunch of other enhancements. How about you tell us all about it?
So, the game that we have hacked the ROM of, or at least the creator of the ROM hack, Nemo622, is Pokémon Emerald, which is their ROM known as Pokémon Emerald Seaglass. Now, Pokémon Emerald Seaglass has been on my radar for a long time because I love Pokemon ROM hacks. I'm a Pokemon fanatic. I've played every game except for the first 2 generations because they make me want to puke. And Pokemon Emerald was my first ever game that I played Pokemon-wise. So this ROM hack of that game has a few graphical changes. So it's basically changed the graphics to kind of look like GB Game Boy Color style Pokemon game in lieu of like Pokemon Crystal. Bunch of brand new sprites. They still animate and things like that. A graphical overhaul, so the game looks very different, but also some quality of life changes. Some changes to Pokemon types, some changes to Pokemon moves, changes to gym leader teams, and significant trainer changes. It's been very, very exciting to revisit the region of Hoenn, which is what the region is called, from a different lens, especially as someone who's played Pokemon Emerald about 50,000 times. This has been like a breath of fresh air. Now, you've never played Pokemon Emerald, have you?
No. So as I understand it, this is third generation Pokemon.
Gen 3.
No, I had not played it. I did play Pokemon Blue back on the original Game Boy. But then I don't think I played any other Pokemon until like the DS era. And I've dabbled a lot in some of the remakes on the Switch. Plus I played Shield.
Yep.
And I played Scarlet as well.
Arceus? Did you play Arceus?
I did play a little bit of Arceus, yes. I didn't get... That one didn't enthrall me quite.
Didn't do you as much. Didn't really do it for you.
So this was an interesting experience for me because you were very excited about
I was absolutely hyped.
You were just like, we've done all the shit you want to do.
No, that's not what I said.
That's
what I meant, but it's not what I said.
Can we just do a topic that I'm interested in, bitch?
Well, I was brought onto the ROM hack because I'm a really, really big fan of the Twitch streamer and YouTube content creator Fawn, Phaun, who is like a queer content creator. I would hazard to put them as a Pokemon creator. I know they vary from that as well.
This is a streamer, right?
Yeah, but they do like YouTube content as well. And they make like YouTube content too.
Like us.
We are
shout out
creators. Love you, by the way. Thank you for getting me through my surgery. And so they brought it to my attention because Nemo is also a queer developer as well who created the ROM. So, and Fun was doing something called a girly pop lock, which is where they only use girly pop Pokemon. Do you know what a girly pop is?
Not an effing clue.
Okay, well, we're going to leave it for another day. But basically, it was just a very queer stream. We're all doing queer stuff. It was very, very fun. Yeah. And it just brought to my attention, like, I wanted to replay the game with this new lens, and I wanted to help you experience Pokemon Emerald. So I would love to pick your brain. Tell me a little bit about how your first experience with Pokemon Emerald was.
I imagine my experience is probably very different to yours, right? Because you're revisiting what is one of your first ever gaming experiences in a way that's been modernized, but also I think there's a bit of irony in the fact it's been modernized whilst also using a graphical style from the previous generation. Yep. Which I love anyway, because I'm a 90s kid, born in the mid 80s, but really came of age in the 90s and early 2000s. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. So I love the renaissance that original Game Boy style of graphics is happening, like with NZ that we spoke to recently and Gas Station Story releasing 24th of June. Get on that wish list now on Steam, and also Small Town Emo with Knife. Like, there's this huge resurgence of love for what is quite a timeless
console.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, there was much nostalgia because I recognized the graphical style. I never had a GBA, so I'd never played it. And I think after having played, the very not in-depth, but the modern ones, which
like open world,
so much to do, designed to really hold your attention for prolonged periods of time, which these were as well in their way. But it was also it was so much more simpler.
Yes. It was a simpler time back then.
Yeah. And, and I didn't get to spend a lot of time with the game, but the time I did get to spend was quality, right? Because I just, all right, pick my Pokemon, no guff around it. I pick my little start. I pick my little fire one because I always pick my little fire one.
Love Torchic.
Fire. Torchic, then just, whatever, there's someone next door who's going to follow you around, all the cliches of Pokemon. And
it's very much...
off I set on my adventure.
Yeah, it's very much the Pokemon formula. They haven't changed it. They haven't deviated too much. Like, it's even existing now currently in the modern games. You start in your little town, you get your starter, you have your rival, you go around, you collect the badges. In some games, you don't collect badges, don't yell at me. And then you challenge the Elite Four and you become the champion. So it's kind of the similar story. It was great to revisit it because in this game, Nemo has tweaked it so that it's not as easy as it once was. Yeah. The Pokemon vary a lot more, so it's a lot more like team buildy. I got to make like a team that I really, really cared about. Some Pokemon had some type changes, lots of move changes. but the gym leaders were also a little bit more difficult as well, which I personally enjoy because I know Pokemon is a game for children, but I'm an almost 30-year-old man.
Oh, I'd say they're somewhat timeless in their appeal. Like,
yes, but the big complaint is that there was some Pokemon games where they had easy mode and hard mode, and they've never done it again. So I'm like, why wouldn't you just do it again? But anyway, that's a conversation for another time. So, but before we delve into the game specifically, like around the music and the gameplay and things like that, you did a little bit of research around Nemo and went down a little bit of a queer rabbit hole, some could say, didn't you?
If I'm going to go down to any rabbit hole, it's certainly going to be a queer one. That's for certain.
But tell me, so you did a bit of research into ROM hacking in general, and we found a little something.
Yeah, well, look, I had to. When you suggested this game, I had no idea about Nemo 622 and the fact that it was developed by a queer person, because I'm like, we're the Bargain Gamers, and we've always got our little homo link. And so I found one. But I became really fascinated by the ROM hacking community in general. And I wanted to try and find more information on queer ROM hacks, right? And initially I couldn't find much, right? Because what I've eventually found out is that queerness in ROM hacks is probably more subtle than what I was looking for, right? Like it wasn't Bowser and Mario and Toad hooking up in a throuple. Cool. I'd play that game. But
I would watch you play that game.
But, I found a lot of references to Fire Emblem ROM hacks to start with.
Super gay game already, so.
Yeah. But apparently, adding a lot more like gay relationship and romance storylines and options and all that kind of cool. But then what I found that was really interesting was a story from 2019 on Kotaku and a few other websites about a bit of controversy.
Scandalo.
Around romhacking.net, which has been around since about 2006. It's a database where you can submit ROM hacks and they review them for quality and all that kind of stuff and then make them available, right? So, you don't, go and accidentally download a virus or something
it's
like that.
Like the one-stop shop for quality.
Yeah. So in 2019, there was a ROM hacker who put forward a game called Pokémon Crystal.
Pan, I just got it.
Yeah. Which you told me before you had not heard of.
No.
So Pokémon Crystal, now the main part about Pokémon Crystal was that there is a move called Attract.
Yep.
Which I believe works on opposite genders.
Yeah, so your Pokemon can woo the other Pokemon and it becomes infatuated.
But
it has
only
to be the opposite gender.
Only the opposite.
Yeah.
So the main change they made in Pokepan was that that move worked on was genderless.
Love that.
Yeah. It took a while for romhacking.net to get back to the creator of this ROM hack, and eventually whoever reviewed it turned it down, stating that it would likely attract SJWs to the platform. Unwanted SJW attention. You know what an SJW is?
I do. It's a social justice warrior.
A social justice.
It's a very 2000s
warrior.
term, can I just say?
I know.
Like, people don't say that term anymore.
Yeah.
I think everyone is a social justice warrior because I think everyone should care.
Yeah, so the individual who was working on Pokémon Crystal had quite a following and took the story to several outlets like Kotaku. And eventually, romhacking.net staff came back and were incredibly apologetic and stated that they had actually removed that individual from their staff.
Good.
And so I was actually quite impressed with their response. So as a group, we are terribly embarrassed and apologetic for the actions and words from one of our submission reviewers. This reviewer has been suspended indefinitely. Our volunteer part-time staff members around the globe are often unable to make timely coordinated group decisions. Individual latitude is often taken as a result to keep the ball rolling with hundreds of submissions per month. Then they went on to say, let's make things right. We're truly sorry that this happened. Romhacking.net stands with LGBTQ plus saga communities on this matter. We've carried such hacks since our first year in 2006 with Series plus Terra, whatever that is, and there's a link to it. Let's make this a call to gather up all of the other completed LGBTQ plus / saga themed hacks we can and proudly display them on romhacking.net. DOS Meow, I think that's the name of the person who made the Pokepad, can resubmit their hack, and we would love to host any others. We will support you, Nightcrawler and the romhacking.net staff. So well done
Very nice.
to them. Really, really good response. Really good sense. This was back in 2019.
Yeah.
So I went on to romhacking.net. And again, they've got tens of thousands, if not more, of legitimate ROM hacks available of all kinds of things, right? You know, they could just be tweaking one thing, like in this case. What I did find was that the ROM hacks that I came across, I came across quite a few for like Zelda games, like Ocarina of Time, is where they removed a lot of gender pronouns.
Yeah.
So in the example I came across, you choose a name for Link, but you don't choose a gender. But
you do? You choose a name for Link?
You can name Link, yeah. Oh,
never played it.
I don't think you couldn't do it. You've played mostly Breath of the Wild.
I started on Twilight Princess.
What? You could do it in Twilight Princess?
You could?
Yeah. Oh. But you always could change Link's name.
Oh.
However, the character's always referred to Link as a he or a him. So these hacks removed those gender pronouns.
Love that.
Which made me realize that, so like queer ROM hacks are really just more about, similar to what Nemo has done, because we had a little look in our test run of Emerald Seaglass, and you don't pick a gender, you pick a model. Which one of these do you identify with?
Correct. Yeah. Which one do you identify with?
Yeah.
And it's model 1, model 2, and it's the male and female option in Pokemon Emerald, Brendan and Mei.
But they're not gendered. They're just they present in a certain way.
Correct.
And it's like, well, which one do you identify the most?
Yeah, and then after you click on, they say perfect, looks just like you, or something like that, or looks perfect, which it's just a small change. It's not ruining the Emerald experience in any way. It's not revolutionized the game and gated up or anything. It's just broadened the appeal. So instead of now, if I was to be a gender non-conforming person and I wanted to play Emerald, I have to be like, well, I guess am I a boy or a girl? I don't know. But now it's inclusive for everyone, which I think is only a benefit.
Yeah, exactly. And so for people who are transgender, non-binary, or genderqueer in any way, and so many people in our community are gamers. You were saying as well, like Pokemon is just has a huge queer fan base.
It really does.
Massive, right?
Yeah.
But how awful to always have to be faced with that uncomfortable question, right?
Well, that's the thing, and that's why it's perfect that people can ROM these games to be how they want them to, modernize them, whatever you want to call it, is to make it more inclusive for everyone, because Pokemon is such a vast community, and of course, all of these old school games have tons and tons of fans that have probably grown up to be queer or not gender conforming, so they want to make these games more inclusive for people like them. So I think it's fabulous.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look...
And I mean, we're gay. We always pick the girl character anyway, so...
I really do. Look, I mean, being able to select a gender has always been a good thing in itself, right? Moving away from just purely male protagonists.
Well, that was
the
first 2 generations you can only be a boy.
Yeah, exactly. And you've had EA and BioWare have been doing it with their RPGs for forever. I mean, there were some early female leads like Samus and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the conversation has changed enough now that we also need to just we need to be a little bit different in how we approach gender. And it's not taking away from anything.
No.
If you still want to pick the male-looking character because you want to be a bro, then you can.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't have to be called a man.
Exactly. Like I said, it doesn't take away anything. It doesn't take away from you, a cis person, wanting to be a boy or a girl. Who cares? You are still physically represented in that, but it's just more inclusive.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt anyone.
I'd love to hear from anyone in the community who is more impacted by these choices, especially in ROM hacks. We'd love to hear from you on this topic as well. One thing as well I'd love to hear from people on is other examples of queer ROM hacks. You know, the stuff we've looked at has been very heavily focused on gender and all that. But, you know, please, if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment.
Please.
Contact us on our socials or email bargainbinggamer@gmail.com. So, that was an interesting little sort of sidebar. But coming back
to Emerald Seaglass.
Yes. You played through it all whilst you were recovering from your surgery.
Yes.
So as a diehard fan, what did this all mean to you?
Oh my God, it was everything. So I've I've always had a bit of an issue going back to Pokemon Emerald because there are some quality of life changes to the newer Pokemon games that I can't live without them.
Yeah.
The physical special split, which you have no concept of. But long story short is the types were divvied into either special or physical. Pokemon have stats that reflect how they do damage. Some Pokemon like Gengar, you know Gengar, the ghost, he's a poison and ghost type. Both of those types were physical and he's not a physical attacker. So he was basically useless, right?
Yeah.
From Generation 4 onwards, which is the next generation after Pokemon Emerald, they introduced the physical special split. So instead of fire being only a special type, it was you have special and physical moves. I can't go back. I'm sorry. I know I'm a bad Pokemon fan. I just can't do it, right? So this ROM hack has revolutionized it in that way where it's added those features, but it's also made the game slightly more difficult. It's made the characters a little bit more exciting. The gym leaders have more exciting teams that have more variety because there was some gym leaders that had like 2 of the exact same Pokemon. And I'm like, girl, what are we doing? We've got an electric type down there. And then there's also obviously the graphical overhaul, which is amazing. But there was some little amazing additions that I wanted to bring to your attention because I'm not too sure if you managed to see them. There's a town called Pacifilog Town. You wouldn't have been to it because it's
Pacifilog.
Pacifilog.
How very Pacific.
Yeah, it's made out of logs. It's a log town built on a coral reef, right? So, but you could fly to that town early in the game and do a little mini game there that was not in the original game. It was like a little safari. You go underwater, do snorkeling and stuff. Oh my God, it breathed life into that town. And that's what the ROM hacks that I look for. That's what I look for in a ROM hack is what I should say, is that you haven't changed the whole game. You've just improved it. And by making that even tiny addition, I was fucking obsessed. I was playing that for so long and you could get there early in the game as well because they like fly you there. And it was just such a cute little addition. And they have little bits and pieces like that throughout the game. And it just shows like the love. And that's why I love playing Pokemon ROM hacks. So
I was going to say, do you have to be a diehard fan of the original like you though to truly appreciate
it probably, but I think it's such a heightened version of Emerald. I think it's almost like the best version to play.
Okay.
It's not like it's not changing it in any crazy way. It's got beautiful graphics, and I actually fell in love with the graphics while I was playing. I thought that maybe going back to those like crystal style graphics, I'd be a little bit sad because I love the Emerald graphics. But no, I fell in love with them. The Pokemon selection was so fantastic as well. And it just has those quality of life. So I actually think this is probably like the most definitive Emerald version that you could play. As a first-time player, how did you find like the first couple gyms? Were you finding the game quite charming? Did you?
Yeah, you said that they were made harder, but I found that I kind of soared through them pretty easily. But that was because I remember gyms in like the original Game Boy ones being really, really quite difficult. And so I spent a lot of time just leveling up before I got there.
Of course, yeah.
So that I could just kind of sail right through it.
Yeah.
But again, for me, it was just a different experience. This was just, it's just nice to play a game that looks like the things I remember playing.
Yeah.
You know, because again, I don't have that close affinity with Pokemon. You know, Pokemon to you is like Star Trek is to
It is, yeah.
like, you know,
I'm completely like the RAM of my brain is taken up by mostly Pokemon knowledge, which is unfortunate for anyone who tells me their name.
So I've seen Nemo do some interviews on YouTube, and I actually desperately tried to find their contact to get them on the show
Nemo,
today.
if you're listening, please.
Yeah.
I want to meet you so bad.
We would love to do a future episode to talk more to Nemo about this, and we'll make that happen.
And your upcoming game, Pokemon Lazarus, coming out.
But there was, so you mentioned as well, there's a lot of other Pokemon ROM hacks out there as well, which are really, and they're quite popular. They have huge followings. Like, what are some of the other ones?
So the main ones that I've played is Clear Crystal, which like levels up the whole game with you as you go, which is quite fun. And then there's probably the biggest one. I hazard to say that because I'm sure people will be like, actually. But it's Radical Red, which is a ROM hack of Pokemon Fire Red, which came out in the same generation as Pokemon Emerald. And that's like a hyper-competitive Pokemon game. If I say competitive Pokemon, do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So like high stats, good EVs, good IVs, like blah, blah, blah. That game I've sunk a lot of time into as well. And that is like a complete overhaul of that game.
Okay.
It's like completely changed. The graphics are still vaguely the same, but it's like crazy difficult. And that's why I say this game, like let's say Emerald is here. Radical Red is like here. For those listening, I'm doing a measurement. I think it falls somewhere in the middle because it's revamped a lot of the teams, but it's also given you a lot of different Pokemon choices to pick from, which makes you have like a more round-out team. So, and one thing that Emerald is extremely well known for that I wanted to pick your brain about is, how did you feel about the music?
it sounded like Game Boy music.
So good. So one of the most well-known soundtracks for Pokemon is Pokemon Emerald. It's all trumpets and brass. Everyone makes jokes about it. And I'm so glad Nemo did not change any of that while playing the game. Because it was like nostalgia while playing a game that's been changed, which I really, really enjoyed. So I thought I'd go through the general plot of Pokemon Emerald because it has a bit of an environmental edge. But Pokemon Emerald basically goes through, you battle between two evil teams, Team Aqua and Team Magma, and they're trying to increase the land and increase the sea respectively. And the game is all about living in tandem with Pokemon, which is very like environmental-esque.
Yeah, which is, I mean, Pokemon often has that.
Always has, yeah.
It's just like, oh yeah, we're going to live like in harmony with these creatures that we make beat the absolute snot out of each other.
Yeah, so funny you mentioned that. So the guy who created Pokemon says that it is a perfect utopia where, you know, there's no energy crisis and they can just make synthetic food. But I believe in the game you can technically eat Pokemon. But by playing through those first 3 gyms, did you get like any sense of like the general plot and things like that? Did you pick up on too much of that?
No, I mean, it seemed like Pokemon kind of rinse and repeats a lot of
really
its stories, right? There's, you know, Team Rocket are always blasting off at the speed of light, surrender now or prepare to fight. You know, there's always the best friend who you're going to battle at various different places along the way.
Yeah.
I do know that there are often, there's always a secret clandestine organization like Team Rocket who are trying to do something.
Secret clandestine organization. That's funny. Flowery language.
We're in town. Put my glasses back on.
There we go.
Yes, there was a very secret clandestine. I'm wearing my glasses for anyone listening to the audio version. But anyway, I had no idea what was going on.
No. And so this was something that I thought would be interesting to bring up is that you've played a lot more of the modern games, which are a bit more open world. They have a little bit more kind of to do, which is kind of a funny thing to say because most Pokemon fans complain about the new games. But how did you feel about it being more on rails? Because this was very go A to B to C. Like you can't just fuck about. Like
given the short time I had to sort of get a bit of time under the game to chat about it with you, being streamlined was nice. In fact, it was nice to just go back to that old school style of Game Boy RPG where it's not linear. Like there's lots of stuff to do, but it's simpler and it's nicer and it's easier to digest.
I miss it.
I could rarely give 2 tosses about the story.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even in Scarlet, which I abandoned until it switched to patch, and now I'm playing it again.
Congratulations, it's a real
I'm never
game now.
really playing them for the story.
Yeah. Well, Scarlet and Violet has a pretty good story.
Yeah, I mean, I just tend to be, like, I just want to build up a really cool roster of Pokemon and do some fun battles and explore shit. Like,
yeah. Well, that was what I used this experience for again. I wanted to play with like some favorites and I got to have some reintroduction to some old favorites. Shout out to Claydol, Pokemon that no one gives a fuck about, but I'm weirdly obsessed with. Really good in this game. And that's some of the more quality of life things. They've made some of these lesser good Pokemon, not good English, but actually viable. They give them like better moves and things like that as well. So in that respect, the game is a complete and utter step up from its original. Did you find anything in the game that you weren't like the biggest fan of? Because it was less grindy because we have now the EXP share and things like that. But was there anything where you were like, oh my God, I'm glad they did away with this in the new Pokemon games?
Not particularly. I mean, I mainly just had moments where I was like, oh shit, I was flicking through the text too quickly and I didn't know where
that is a ROM.
Yeah. I was
so
just like, wait, what am I supposed to do? Or just wander around until a little exclamation mark appears above someone's head and then they're like, oh, thank God, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Well, some of the big changes that I would note that you'd probably notice is, well, one, there's HMs, known as hidden machines, which is where you have to get like Fly and Rock Smash and things like that. In the more modern games, you have like Pokemon that do that for you. You don't have to give it to a team.
I do remember that, yes.
Yeah, and then there's also...
Getting the bike.
Oh, yes. Ding, ding. Whereas there's not free roaming Pokemon in this. So they're in the grass again, whereas obviously in Scarlet and Violet, they're all about. So did you find that was like, did you like that?
I hate random encounters.
You do?
Hate
I kind of like that.
Hate random encounters. Well, Final Fantasy VII, it used to drive me up the wall with its random encounters.
Well, I technically played this game as a little bit of a cheater, not to out myself as a fake Pokemon fan, but I wanted to experience the game at its height. So when you go onto the webpage, it tells you some cheats that you can have to give you the PokeNav. Do you know what I'm saying when I say the PokeNav?
I imagine it's like a GPS for Pokemon.
Correct. So what happens is in the game, it wasn't in the original Emerald, but when you encounter a Pokemon, it registers them in the Pokénav, and then you can click on it, and a piece of grass shakes, and you go to that, and there's the Pokemon. So it kind of takes the randomness out of it, right?
Right, okay.
In the hack that I did, and I used the cheat, it gives you access to every Pokemon in the thing. So I could just pick whichever one I wanted.
Yeah.
So I could have the Hannah Montana best of both worlds, where if I wanted a random encounter, I could. But if I really wanted that one very hard to find Pokemon, I could get it. So that is the workaround that I found for that, which I really liked. But yeah, I finished the game, which was really, really fun. It was very difficult at the end of the game. The Elite Four was very hard. Thank you, Nemo. And then I got to become a champion with my little favorites.
So is this your favorite Pokemon ROM hack to date?
Yes. That was really hard for me to say because Pokemon Radical Red has a really special place for me because I love competitive Pokemon, even though it's a nightmare to do. But even in this game, you have access to mints, which allow you to change your Pokemon's nature. Natures give you like stat boosts and decreases. You can give them ability patches, which changes their abilities. So it has that it lends itself to, because, okay, sidebar, not to tangent too much. Pokemon has always been about battling with your favorites. But unfortunately, Pokemon also has like a eugenics feature, which is not very congruent with their whole battle with your favorites, because there's this hidden feature of all Pokemon called IVs, which are like breedable stats. So the idea is that you have to, yes, well, me tonight. But the unfortunate reality is that it causes you to constantly have to breed better and better Pokemon. So you're not playing with your favorites, are you? So I personally think radical change, get rid of IVs. But by giving mints and things like that, it allows you to catch a Pokemon that you really like, and then you build it to be your companion instead of having to find better. So massive fan of those changes. I hope they continue. But yeah, it's definitely my favorite ROM hack at the moment. And honestly, I don't think I'm going to go back and play Emerald. I'm going to play Emerald Seaglass. That's my new, that's what I'm going to play when I want to revisit this game.
Yeah, I'm happy to kind of keep playing through it.
It's very cute.
It's especially when I'm sitting here in my office, it's sitting on my laptop. It's a nice little easy distraction just to go and again, and it takes me back. So yeah,
simpler times.
Good choice. This surprised me with the journey it took me on, by the way.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad. It was the journey a good one? It was a fun one?
No, it was a fun one. And I think I can definitely see us doing more explorations around ROM hacking, especially if we get some more tips and advice from the community.
Well, I'm definitely excited to try a ROM hack of Ocarina of Time. Because that's the thing. I like older games, but we have had this before on this channel where I have to play these old games and I have to look at their hideous graphics and their terrible clunky controls, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm suffering.
Well,
ROM hacks just usually bring them to the modern era.
Well, that's why 8-bit, 16-bit ones hold up better, because the controls have had no need to evolve. They're classic. They just work. Whereas it can be quite jarring to go back to an Ocarina of Time or a GoldenEye or something like that, for sure. So yeah, we'll have to explore more of those.
Yes, please. Leave it all in the comments.
Well, this has been fun.
This has been fun. I'm going to replay it again. I'm going to girly pop lock it.
Let's girly pop ROM hack. Let's hack the ROM.
Do you know what a lock is?
Lock, stock, and 2 smoking barrels.
Are you having a stroke? Are you okay? You smell burning toes? All right, well, we'll leave it on that high note.
We will, indeed. So thank you so much for joining us this time. We'll be back again soon. But until then, I've been Davey.
And I've been Mitch.
And we've been
the Bargain Bin Gamers.
Yes, we have. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you give it a big thumbs up on YouTube or follow the podcast wherever you get your podcast from and leave us a 5-star review. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky and follow along on our live Twitch streams. You can also continue the conversation in our BQN podcast Discord by clicking the link in the episode description. Don't forget that the Bargain Bin Gamer is part of a larger network of podcasts called the BQN. You can support this and other BQN programs by becoming a patron over at patreon.com/BQN. We'd love to hear your feedback on the episode. Leave us a comment on YouTube or send us an email to bargainbingamer, GAYMER, @gmail.com. Until next time, au revoir.
Double T Media.